The first legal challenge against Brexit has been heard at the High Court today. Joseph Kotrie-Monson, director at Monson Solicitors on Fleet Street, is with us. Hello to you, Joseph.
Good afternoon, Sheila.
Hi there. Now listen, just give us the bare bones of what this challenge is and who's making it.
Okay, so what we have here, Sheila, is a number of interested groups who together make two claims. And the first is that the referendum result is not legally binding on the government. The second is that the government cannot use its executive powers to invoke Article 50 to exit without going to Parliament for a vote. Now, as far as the first claim is concerned, Sheila, legally that's fairly uncontroversial. This was never a binding referendum. It was always advisory in law, and this is precisely why David Cameron had to make it clear before the vote that he would nevertheless act upon it. Of course, there's a distinction here between something being legally binding and something being politically necessary. To not go down the route of starting the process for Brexit would be political suicide for anyone in the PM's chair, which is why every politician who's come close to being in that chair, and Sheila, there have been a few over the past couple of weeks, has said Brexit does mean Brexit. But interestingly, there is a constitutional question. Can the government act without Parliament on issues involving treaties, especially concerning the EU? To do so, the government argues it would be using its royal prerogative, which sounds very old-fashioned and fancy, but it's basically that limited area of executive powers it has to act without recourse to Parliament. Generally speaking, when it comes to foreign affairs, it has that power. I've done some research on this, and it seems very much between constitutional experts it's something of a moot point. There may be an argument that in matters where EU treaties are involved as a result of the European Communities Act of 1972, and the legal powers it gives, the UK legal powers it gives to European law, that they cannot be changed without going back to Parliament. I stress I'm not a constitutional lawyer. There are minds far more legally bookish in this area than mine to address issues such as these. But the principle very much appears to be that treaties involving the European Union may just require recourse to Parliament.
So when David Cameron gave that resignation speech outside Number 10, brief though it was, he seemed to suggest, and of course lawyers could take this to pieces, but he seemed to suggest that wasn't necessary, that executive power of the next Prime Minister, now Theresa May, was sufficient.
Absolutely, and that's been the government line since before the referendum, which is why Mishcon De Reya, the other law firms that are involved in this, and the other interested groups that are considering joining. There's even, Sheila, a group representing many of them retired UK citizens living in European Union countries who are terrified of deportation, who apparently are going to be joining this action. You know, they've been planning this since before the outcome in case.
What's interesting though is that, I mean, it's early days in this challenge, isn't it? But it's given us a little insight into the architecture of Brexit.
Absolutely, and perhaps calling it architecture rather than a collection of rickety buildings all
Am I flattering Brexit
together
at this stage?
But, you know, architecture implies plans and an architect. There has been no architecture in that. There's been no planning. There's been no forward thinking. Sheila, this is the great constitutional mess of my lifetime. The reality is that we're looking at rapidly changing circumstances. The integrity of the referendum and the promises that were made in the referendum to the people, and how that should impact on the extent to which the referendum should be regarded as significant of the will of the people, is completely in question. Sheila, no politician is now suggesting giving the NHS 350 million quid a week.
No, they're really not.
And most sensible politicians in the argument are suggesting now, at the very least, rather quietly, partial membership, if not full membership, of the common market for the UK.
Oh, now, Joseph, stop campaigning. Thank you. Joseph Kotrie-Monson.
You know me, Sheila.
I do. Joseph Kotrie-Monson, director at Monson Solicitors on Fleet Street. Brexit means Brexit, says the Prime Minister. We'll leave it at that for now.